Hello and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. I'm Richard Edwards, and today it's a bit of a flexible one, I guess. We aren't really going to do anything significant around news because I just don't necessarily feel there's that much around to make it worthwhile. But what we will be doing is chilling out with a couple of people and seeing what we can talk about in regards to how the year was, our kind of key moments. Well, I've just triggered my AI camera there and it's decided to zoom out weirdly. Ooh, let's try to fix that again. No, hang on. Let's zoom back in there. This is the problem with technology, right? The problem with tech. So, it's going to move me around. Okay. Anyway, we'll ignore that. Now, joining me slightly late because he forgot is Graham McDonald.
Good morning, everyone. Merry Christmas and all that sort of stuff. And I have no excuse. I'm sorry, Richard. Bad man.
Let me guess, you were massively busy selling lots and lots of cars on the yard.
Whatever story you want to make up. It has been dismally quiet. So we're out here in the wilds of West Auckland, and there's this that a creature was stirring in the house. Central Park Drive, which is where we are, I've never seen it quieter. I could play a game of hopscotch out on the asphalt there right now.
Yeah. Even the dealers with lots of EVs, they don't seem to be particularly busy at all?
I can't speak for the dealers out there that have got. I spoke to a couple before Christmas that were really busy. So EV centric dealers that were really busy leading up. But the guys around locally here that I know that deal in EV stock had a bit of it. The big rush never happened, and it's probably a worthwhile point actually. Is that big surge of activity for clean car around hybrids and things? We made a big deal of it, but out here, we just never really saw it in the number that we would think. And whether that was hybrid vehicles with your $1,000, your $1,300, or the Leaf market, there are still plenty of Leafs out there for sale. And those rebates, if you haven't already found someone to take the rebate, of course, they're going to vanish in about 48 hours.
Yeah. And I imagine a lot of dealers are just kind of shutting off to it today, I would have thought, because, you need time. I mean, when's the last time you guys can actually safely sell a car and know that they'll be able to collect the money that they're due?
Well, okay, so technically Sunday's the last day, but you've got to be able to plate the car. So you can plate the car on a Saturday. In theory, you plate the car on a Saturday with your customer, that's fine. But then it's all down to how quickly your customer can get their ducks in a row. So making sure they have all their paperwork, their bank account details, it's all lined up. Because there have been quite a few issues with people just not following due process or not having quite the right details. And by the time you figure it all out or you have it all set up on your PC at home, that can be a 24-hour turnaround. You ain't got that window this time. And so our recommendation to people has been a cut-off of today, Friday, and if they have any issues. So literally, if you want to sit down in the office and do an application while we're there and we can walk you through it, and if there are any problems, we can hopefully guide you through that particular part of the process. And I imagine most dealers are the same because you obviously want to help your customer collect that rebate. That's part of the whole sales pitch. But people do struggle a bit sometimes. And it's a really simple thing when you know how. And if you don't know how, there's lots of little twists and turns on that right car page, which can send you up in a bit of a spiral. And before you know it, you miss the cutoff because it's really clear. Midnight, nothing. If it's not completed and submitted and successfully accepted, nothing. So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So look, we'll run through the news of the week beforehand, and the news of the week is that there's really nothing. There's one story floating around that we're just popping up on AutoTalk now, and that is that Eagers Group, so they own some fairly substantial dealerships in New Zealand. They have had a cyber attack over the holidays. So imagine that, particularly for some of their. I think they've got an MG dealer down in South Auckland. Imagine dealing with MG trying to move out as many EVs as they can before December 31st and having someone messing with your IT systems. Now, hopefully it hasn't affected them that much, and I'm sure they're working through it. But that's not a nice time of year to have that. And it's also probably a giant hassle for the IT guy who's had to come back from the batch to sort out the mess. So, you got to kind of feel for them. Outside of that, look, today, it's not about news. I think what we're going to do is just talk about maybe some of the things we've liked and disliked and news-wise and stuff this year. We might have a guest pop in a minute and, just make it a nice Nice chill one. No
Christmas
alcohol.
talk shit time.
Yeah, no alcohol this time because I've got a lot of work to do today. But yeah, there's a Coke Zero keeping me going. You've probably got a half empty mobile coffee cup or something.
And it is half empty.
When did mobile replace Wild Bean Cafe coffee for you as a drink? And we should discuss this.
I've
Who does
got
the best
I've got a coffee girl.
Yeah,
I've got a coffee girl up at the local mobile, and she's really, really good. Now, I'm going to give a bit of shout out here to Chima at the mobile on Lincoln Road. She won, or she placed third place in the mobile Best Barista 2023 contest, and she makes a mean flat white. And she knows our orders here off the heart. You walk in there and she's already making the coffee for you, and all the little intricate details, and who has the soy and who has the trim and who has the half shot. And she's always put out when we don't actually order coffee, which we do twice, 3 times a day. But I don't know if it's the bean or if it's the way that it's produced. Anyone else at that service station can't make coffee the way that she makes it, which is why she won the award, I guess. And so the best baristas in the world are only as good as the coffee beans, but then the best coffee beans in the world are only as good as the barista, as I have discovered. So for me, my coffee of choice would still be a wild bean with an average barista, but I'm going to go to the mobile Lincoln Road for my, there we are, nice little commercial shout out for my show in the morning.
I can tolerate a wild bean, but I do just find them just pretty darn homogenous. It just tastes like coffee flavored milk to me. They're not particularly good at making anything that's got any punch to it.
No.
Yeah. No.
And the Z is the worst. Z is the worst. Z makes shit coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know where they source their beans from, but it's just rubbish.
Yeah, my thing with the Z is, I think look. This is hilarious. This is what we're talking about in a podcast. That
it's important stuff. We're dealers. It's important stuff,
guys. We know a whole pile of people watch, but everyone stays quiet all year. This is a topic that you should be jumping into the comments on. Is which service station makes the best coffee? Yeah, I think the Z, it's just whoever's around and whichever cashier is available at the time that makes the coffee. Whereas I think the wild bean, they actually try and attempt to have someone consistently making the coffee. Yeah, the thing that pisses me off with Z is they always burn the milk. I'm sorry, service stations, but
yes,
if someone orders a coffee, if it's too hot for them to literally hold in their hand, you've cooked the milk, and yeah. Bad.
And so why service station coffee is so important in this trade, because non-dealer people right now, you in Wellington, who may have the one person in Wellington who's a civil servant that's still watching this must be just holding their heads going, service station coffee, how could you? If you're a trader, if you're involved in the vehicle industry, you move around a lot. You're always on the go. You just can't find the local little Joe spot, a nice little place with the 22-year-old barista with the PSDs and stuff like that who makes this mean cup of coffee. You haven't got time. Service stations become your coffee of choice. So it's a really important thing for us in the industry. Yes, if I could, I would go across the road to Anastasia's Coffee to Wake the Dead with a roast beans and pretty much stick nitroglycerin inside the mix. So you walk out there physically shaking after you've had a flat white. But we can't do that on the road. As Richard would attest, roadie coffee with me is a really important thing because it actually keeps me functioning. So service station coffee for the car industry is a really important factor. And if you make shit coffee, I'm not going to go and give you my business. It's that important.
Now, coffee on yards, we saw a trend for a while of dealerships, particularly new car dealerships, putting cafes in their showrooms, and it kind of disappeared again. Yeah. Have you ever thought of like inviting a coffee caravan to live in that front driveway of Croydon's, like facing the road?
It'd be a great idea. If we run sale promotions, yeah, of course you'd do that. But there's just not enough foot traffic these days. What coffee counts in the base themselves here? Well,
I don't know. It's fairly big catchment. There'd be several thousand workers within a 500 meter or 5 minute walk of your driveway. Yeah.
Actually, we do get the pie truck. We get a pie truck that comes here. The Jaffel pie truck comes. What does that tell you about this, right? We get a pie truck that visits us, but nobody brings coffee. You got to convince them to turn up first. Those little coffee cars you see, the ones that all set themselves up with the machine in the back and bits and pieces. There's several of those around here, but again, they're not good.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We pass through. I pass through Walkworth on a regular basis, and since the new motorway went through there, of course, all the usual coffee spots people would go to have gone. And so suddenly you've got 3 coffee vans between the motorway entrance and the Dome Valley.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well thought through plan.
I've not stopped trying any of them, thankfully, because we if you're up in Mangawhai at the moment on holiday, as I'm sure 1 or 2 people listening are, then there's Rise and Grind of Coffee Van in the Village, very good, and the Brewdaz Collective in the Heads is just pretty legendary in regards to coffee, and various food items. Yeah, well, there you go. We've wasted 10 minutes talking about station coffee.
It's an important thing, everyone. We all know it. We all do it.
Yes. Now we touched for a minute there on the whole EV thing, and joining me now in the waiting room, and I'm going to bring in someone who can actually tell us if people have been buying EVs like crazy, and if this is some secret government plan by cancelling the clean car discount to spur thousands of EVs onto the road. I suspect not. Warren Wilmot from BYD New Zealand. Warren, what are you doing in a suit on December?
Morning, Warren. I was going to say suit and tie.
Yeah, hey, we work for BYD. We're always in a suit and tie every day at the office here. So our chairman happens to be down in the country as well. So extra tight tie this morning as well.
Neville's here for Christmas. How is Neville?
Absolutely. Well, he's smiling, isn't he? He was always smiling, Neville. So no, it's been good. It's been a really, really good, strong finish to the year, and lots of people still buying cars. I think we sold 4 already this morning. So nice. Showrooms are still busy.
Yeah. Did you get much of a last minute bump from all this? I mean, is it?
You know what? I was expecting a bit more. There was no mad rush. I think the whole industry was geared up for a huge rush into the showrooms, and it's kind of just been a steady sort of stream. Interestingly for us, we've just clicked over 640 sales this morning for the month of December, which is a record for us.
Mm-hmm.
In amongst that, yeah, there's a certain amount of fleet. I mean, if you're a fleet or a government department and you can claim a rebate, you buy 8, you get your 9th one free. So there are a couple of fleets in there that took advantage of that. But really, retail's been very, very strong. And Christmas Eve, we saw at least 15 people come in across our showrooms and buy cars on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Good.
Conversely, are you expecting to move anything in January?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got our first shipment of seals arriving in January. So it's presents available for the public. I get asked this question all the time: what is the removal of the clean car discount going to do for our brand? And I think personally, from a BYD point of view, we're in a very good space. We've got a compelling car at a good price, and the government incentive is just an extra added value. It might hurt our retail sales maybe 30%, but there's still a lot of corporates out there that need to decarbonise. There's still a lot of government departments out there that need to decarbonise, and the easiest way to do that's your fleet. So we're expecting a good year. We're also really well placed. We've got some great products coming. So you guys will be able to take a sneak peek of the Seal U very early in the new year. I've got one of those. It's our first, what we call super plug-in hybrid technology that others haven't seen here in New Zealand before. And then, of course, we've got some other great products coming. Everybody knows we've got a Ute coming. We've got the Sea Line due in the second half of the year. So, we're in a really good space.
Have you driven the Ute?
I have indeed, Richard. It's
what can you tell us? Come on, give us an exclusive here.
Go on, sneak peeks, Warren. Sneak peeks.
Well, I wasn't allowed to take any photos, but I can tell you it's big. It's bigger than a Ranger. Yes, it tows. It's a plug-in hybrid, so there is a full BEV Ute coming for BYD, but it'll be a little bit further down the track. The problem is when you build a car to a light vehicle spec, right? The international specs are 3.5 ton GPM. So if you add batteries, well, that gives you less payload, right? So the bigger the battery, the less payload, which is why we've gone with a plug-in hybrid first. But total combined with fuel and the EV should be about 1,000 k's range. It's freaking fast. We're looking at sub 6 seconds 0 to 100 k's and plenty of torque. So and all the full suite of BYD technology that you're used to dealing with. So if you're a trader, you get to a job site, you want to plug in your power tools or your barbecue or your kettle, you'll be able to plug straight into the Ute and use the power there as well.
What kind of volume do you reckon you'll do on that?
Well, that all depends on the price, right? So if it's a very good price, we should do some very good volume. But people do ask me about the price all the time, and all I can say is you could just look at our track record. We're bringing compelling cars in at really competitive pricing, and a lot of that comes down to BYD's great vertical integration. We build every single part of the car apart from really the glass and the tyres, and that'll helps in producing a really good quality car for a really good price.
Now, in just over a year, you've gone from, and that covers most of 2023. You've gone from kind of nowhere to a top 5. Are you a top 5 passenger brand now?
Oh, possibly. We'll have to wait and see what happens in this month.
And
BYD's
probably one
might
of
be
the
December.
Yeah, one of the fastest growing. One of the fastest growing. I mean, no doubt.
That's a global
What's
trend.
Pick your highlight of the year. What's your highlight of the year been for you?
Hey, look, definitely launching the Seal was fantastic, and having Mr. Liu, the president of the Asia Pacific region, down here to see what we've done in the market here. We've built some amazing showrooms. So I'm not sure if you've been over to the North Shore and seen our new facility at 155 Wairau. That was a 25
yesterday.
Yeah, that's got enough power on that site to be able to charge 42 EVs all at once. And I think that's probably probably the most EV ready dealership in the Southern Hemisphere. So that was a highlight. We've added some more dealers on board as well. Grown the dealer network, and also we've had some amazing fleets come on board this year, like ASB Bank. For a start, they've already taken nearly 100 vehicles. Just having some really good quality customers come on board, boots and all, and convert over to EV. So for me, every EV on the road potentially replaces an ICE car, and that's just a good thing.
Warren,
no, definitely.
Just a quick question on that, if I may. Your thinking on this. For me, one stage of maturity in the EV marketplace is when buyers, particularly retail buyers, no longer consider as a primary whether the vehicle is an EV or not, whether they're purchasing it, is whether it's just a good vehicle to suit the purposes. And it strikes me, without being a walking commercial for BYD, that it kind of has been so far, but good on you for making the plug, is that BYD are one of the manufacturers that have actually managed to achieve that, where the vehicles make sense on the basis of just a car to own. And whether it is or it isn't an EV is almost a secondary point to to the consumers that are purchasing. Yes, of course, it's a factor, but to me, that's a really significant step in maturity of the marketplace, moving on from just the early adopters because of the EV tech, rather than the EV tech just being a nice feature to also have. Do you follow my drift?
Absolutely. I think the fact that it's an EV is great, but BYD's core strength is really its engineering. If you look at any traditional car company, usually 2 or 3% of the workforce are engineers. In the case of BYD, 11% of the workforce are engineers. So it's always technology first and foremost. And I've been criticised in the past by calling BYD a premium brand. BYD is a premium brand as far as Chinese cars are concerned, and you can definitely see that in the quality of that BYD Seal. That Seal, I know, Richard, you're driving one at the moment. It's probably one of the first, most ready-to-market cars, first-generation cars I've come across. It's just fully loaded with tech. And the fact that the cars are getting better the longer the customers own them. This month, we've just seen a rollout to all Atto 3 owners. We've put a browser on the car. We've put karaoke mode on the car. We've added Amazon Music. And there's going to be more and more features available for those cars. So,
if only they didn't change all the dings and dongs and beeps and bops and... Yeah. Over-the-air updates are a bit of a double-edged sword, aren't they? You bring stuff some people want, you change stuff other people don't like. So
that's right. Can't get it all the time, but we're trying very hard, and we're very fortunate that BYD are committing to sending engineers down to New Zealand regularly on a regular basis. Yeah. So we've set up an office for them, and we're looking at all the feedback and taking that on board, and we'll get it right for New Zealand here.
Yeah. Now, I just want to go back to we discussed before the new dealership, and you mentioned that Neville's in town at the moment. I thought one of the interesting things that was if you look at the latest issue of AutoTalk, we have a story about that new dealership. But unlike everyone else who just went and ran the press release with Warren and Todd Groves saying nice things, we actually spoke to the dealer, and the dealer Matthew Wales. He said something really interesting. He said it was the best thing about that dealership was designed by someone who actually understands dealerships, and it's pretty much the best property that he's ever dealt with. And it wasn't built by a property developer; it was built by the Attico Group, led by Neville Crichton. And he said they really do know how to build a dealership. So I think it was really interesting feedback.
Yeah, like Neville and Laurie, I guess, basically designed that dealership with the architects. And, if you know Neville's story, he started a car yard in the 1960s with another chap called Sir Colin Giltrap. So they know a thing or two about retailing cars. And, of course, Laurie's was with Neville for over 40 years. So, you've got a lot of experience in behind that and the investments there. And I'm really, really proud of that site. It's a beautiful site. We're also
Graham,
dealership under construction in Nelson at the moment as well. It should be open by February. So it's another dedicated BYD facility. So those in Nelson will have a nice new BYD facility to have a go in.
Now, Graham, tell Warren how wonderful the seal is, if you want to.
Well, Warren probably knows this. I think he may have eavesdropped on a few of my conversations. So I had the seal performance for about 3 or 4 exciting days. Now, I own as you know, if you watch this show, I've got a 5-litre Mustang in the garage, which is my baby, and a horsepower freak from pretty much as soon as I can crawl. However, the seal performance was probably the first EV that I've driven for a period of time, and I thought I could actually own this. I could actually buy one and live with it and enjoy it. And we did a couple of runs up and down. My son's was working out at Glenbrook Vintage Railway for the Christmas season, so I had some late night runs to go and pick him up, 2 in the morning, that sort of stuff. And it was a genuinely pleasurable car to sit and operate and enjoy. And the talking points I got around it were quite significant. You could actually, could you bend me to trade the Mustang in? It'd be a pretty tight deal, Warren, but you never know. But it was that good. It was actually a surprising car to enjoy at every level. And again, I'm not here to plug BYD. If anything, I'm here to plug Twitter Aquas because that's the business that I'm in. Absolutely. But as a car, man, that was good. That blew my expectations away of what and in the industry, let's not cut to the mustard here. There's an illusion, I think, to an extent, or an expectation that Chinese product up to now has been substandard to Japanese sourced product in the marketplace or European sourced marketplace. It's a perception, and it's going to be a tough one to shake in the public marketplace too. For the same reason my father wouldn't buy a Japanese car for decades until he finally relented. And for a lot of people have that same sort of mindset. That seal was the first vehicle of Chinese origin that I actually thought we've arrived. Folks, we're here.
You can actually use it as a daily driver as well. The performance is there when you need it. But as a daily driver, it's great. And it's been interesting to see who's been buying that car. It's in the factory centres who they thought the buyer was, a young person in their 30s or late 20s. Actually, I would say the majority of the buyers have been people 55 plus that have had Falcons and Commodores in the past, and now they want to get back into a sedan. And but even if you take the other 2 models that we've got there, we've got the Dynamic, which is the base model for 62 grand. The premium with the long range, it's at 73. Those are fabulous cars. They're still really quick, and they just drive lovely. So that performance car, though, to me, I think it's probably an instant classic car. Like it's like when I was growing up, it was MR2s and Supras, and I think this is the first mass-produced electric sports car that will become a classic. I'm a fan of Tesla. I like Tesla. They're a good customer. They buy batteries. But I can't see my young son being 28 years old saying, look at my classic Model 3. But they might do that with one of those seals.
I don't think the updated Highland Model 3 is a patch on the seal. I found the updated Model 3 not that pleasant to live with, but that's my personal opinion. Funny you talk about the older buyers. We got caught in a bit of a pinch the other day, and my 73-year-old mother-in-law had to drive the seal for some distance to bail us out, and she thought it was amazing. And she's this normally relaxed, quiet driver, she apparently had to try the acceleration a little bit a couple of times. So yeah.
I'm just no tickets coming my way. Sorry, Warren, if there are. Sorry.
Hey, look, our Ute has the same power output, right?
Yeah.
So
I think the Ute might be more convincing to Graham in the long run. I mean, he's had Utes before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you're talking about the marketplace. Think about what I consider that the predecessor to the Seal performance was the Kia Stinger. Okay, so the Kia Stinger was one of the first of the Korean or Japanese sourced performance four-door sedans in the modern day that a 50s, late 40s, 50s-year-old executive would, or I'm self-employed, for example, could buy. You had the performance, you had quirky looks, a lot of tech with it, and a car that you had a bit of a name behind it. People could actually look and think, that's a quick bit of gear. To me, the Seal Performance is the Kia Stinger of that genre, and it's replaced it. And look, no offense to Kia, build some wonderful cars. I'm sure I'm not here to make a product, but if you're going to buy a Kia Stinger, why the hell wouldn't you buy the Seal Performance instead? It's no brainer. But anyway, look, well done to the team, right? I know you don't actually make the cars personally.
No, I can't do any of that.
But yeah, it must be a pretty good feeling here on the 29th of December, sitting there in the role that you do in a company that's building and producing and sending you product of that sort of caliber in the marketplace, because there are quite a few car companies that don't have that, right now, don't have that outlook on the product range going forward. And it's a great position to be sitting in, I'm sure.
New Zealand is a very, very small market. I've worked with 7 different car brands in the past, and we're not even a pimple on the pimple here. We're a very, very, very small market. I mean, they could build all of my cars in less than a day, for the whole year in terms of production output. But they see New Zealand as a key market. They see it as a very easy place to do business. We're going to get prototype cars to trial here in the new year, which is great. And as I've told the chairman before, the sun always rises first in New Zealand. We're the first to see the new year. So it's a good place for them to trial out the product and us try it first in the Western world. So, yeah, that's great.
Fantastic. Right, so let's stop talking about EVs before the rest of the market stops talking to us. What do we think's going to happen in the new year? Graham, are we going to have a used import market survive of any volume next year, or is it going to be a bit hard, you think, with just the economy? And what are we thinking?
I don't think the indicators are good for the first part, maybe in the first half of the year. I just don't see good indicators for us as a marketplace going forward. Very different drivers to new in a lot of areas. I mean, Warren, you're talking about fleet business, government business, for example, that sort of churns on regardless of what's going on in the fiscal numbers. But we talk about it time and time again. The used car marketplace is the canary in the mine about what's going on in the general wider economy. And I think a lot of people are currently waking up in the morning thinking, you know what? I can afford to still buy coffee. I can afford to go and do a bit of shopping, and I can afford the groceries. But everything else is tough and tight. And I'm going to have a reconsideration around the disposable income, but whether I can afford the repayments on updating the car, or I'm going to hang on to it. And I think an awful lot of people at this particular moment are having that exact conversation around the family table, saying, let's just not yet. And for the used industry, clean car discount, no, that's just a blip on the little horizon about what was happening in the marketplace. I think the wider indicator is that the market is slow. I think there is quite a lot of stock floating around right now that's going to take a while to ship itself on through, and it's not looking particularly flash. Second half of 2024, I think we'll see a recovery, because bless our marketplace, we deal in a market with disposable things that either break or get smashed or get stolen. So eventually they have to be updated. But I think that the drive from people just wanting to have something new and nice and shiny, that's just not there.
We're also hearing indications ultimately that some of the pressure that the Reserve Bank's been putting on the market in regards to interest rates could later in the year start to lift, which could mean we see, even if just a little bit of an implication of potentially reducing mortgage rates or interest rates, that will, even if it doesn't actually entirely happen as such, just the possibility of that, I think, could have a bit of a spurring effect as well. Yeah. Warren, what do you think the new car market's going to do this year?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be challenging first quarter. It'll be glad to see the market sort of normalise with the market conditions that are in play. But, there is a whole lot of, there's a big rush for EVs at the moment. We know there's a lot of people that have placed orders for utes and high-emitting CO2 vehicles that are holding off. So first couple of months, I think you're going to see a lot of Ranger and Hilux and other ute product registrations.
Yes.
Stock situations is very interesting. I don't have full visibility on everybody, but there is a lot of EV stock, especially European type brands in play at the moment. So what those distributors do with their pricing, maybe we might see some price dumping, maybe not. But for us, it's all about protecting that residual value with our customers. So there'll definitely be some movements. It's also interesting you mentioned interest rates. So new EV sales are interesting for dealers because they don't get a lot of finance penetration. Everybody goes for their 1% home loan, bank loan. And we've seen the banks in the last 2 or 3 weeks start to reject a lot of applications, like a lot. I think we had 9 rejected on the 23rd of December in a single day. So that's going to play out as well. But certainly stock's an interesting one. I really think Q2, Q3 will start to see some normalisation in the market and back to an even playing field.
Yeah.
Of course, we've also got the ruck introduction, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, particularly with the plug-in hybrids, because you're essentially getting a double tax on that, and that's really is a disincentive there.
My understanding is the PHEVs are going to be excluded and just roll on the fuel tax.
That's not my understanding, but hey, we'll wait and see.
I say we all just need to go to it. Every car in the market needs to go ruck. That's just the way to
absolutely. That's the fairest way, right? And that's better for those of you who have boats at the boat ramp as well. But yeah, that would be the fairest way as a universal ruck. But how that rolls out, how they manage that, I think they're running out of time to come up with some solutions.
That will be time.
One official who said they were talking about with a plug-in hybrid, you'd be able to submit your fuel receipts into NZTA to get your credit. I mean, what is this, 1980? We'll see
the ruck on everything will be timed very carefully by the government, and then it'll be timed for when they they load ETS and more ETS charges onto fuel. So it'll all be done at the same time. In the same month, they'll basically put 60 to 70 cents of ETS charge onto fuel. They'll remove the fuel excise, and they'll go ruck for everyone. One to hide the other. And they'll be sitting there going, "Oh, look, your fuel's gone down $1.50 at the pump, but your actual overall, if by the time you add it up, you're probably paying 60 more cents ultimately." Yeah.
As long as they fix those roads, like I'm all for it. So.
Yeah, my worry with that is that ultimately they're going to sacrifice fixing roads to build new ones, and that's good. I'm a key beneficiary up here of a massive road building project that supposedly is going to go ahead. That ironically was canned by Winston Peters when we voted him out a few years back. But they've got to maintain the network rather than build new ones. And I sometimes worry that that's the way we're going to go. So
I think our politics are driven as much by optics these days as good policy. And there'll be plenty of constituent MPs, particularly in rural areas, let's face it, they're all the current government. They'll be well aware of their constituents' dismay if some of the promised roading projects for repair are not conducted. They are really aware of the fine line they walk. So I'd be surprised if we saw a wholesale abandonment of needed repairs, because it's become a lightning rod for the previous government is one of the reasons that there was such an abandonment of people. So if you like, it was a display of the general erosion of our infrastructure with the roads themselves. It would be a very unwise political operator to think they can now do the same and abandon it. It's just much of a lightning rod. But I agree. These roads of significance you're talking about, they were such a major play in both the lead up to the election, but also the post-election mandate, I suppose, that again, I think they've made a rod for their own backs. They've got to do it, or they've got to have some sort of plan forward for it.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, which one gets more votes and more photo opportunities? Blaming a council for not filling the potholes, or building a shiny new road? And that's the tricky bit, because shiny new roads take a very, very long time to build.
Well, look at the faces on the Labour ministers that opened the Puhoi to Warkworth motorway as they cut the ribbon, and didn't have a Dicky Bird Dam worth of good things to say about it in the minutes leading up to its opening. And there they were standing up for the cameras. That's the risk politically, is these things do take a long time.
But
and you end up...
Every party does that, Graham. Every party goes and opens something.
Of course they do. I know. Yeah. There's nothing unusual about that, but that is one of the factors. If you don't get it built in your term, hand it over.
Simeon Brown and Christopher Luxon were grinning away on top of that new bridge in the Coromandel they had nothing to do with as well. It's just... It's the political cycle. They
Now, Warren, just talking about infrastructure there, because it's a good point, and I discovered this with the seal, is that charging infrastructure was one of the great promises of the incoming government, and it strikes me it's going to be one of the it's a stumbling block, I suppose, that needs to be solved urgently if we're going to have such an on-road rush into EVs into New Zealand over the next 5 years. And I'm probably stepping on Richard's toes here by asking the question, but do you believe that it's going to be a really significant step that the government has to attain to build that infrastructure? And secondly, do you think they'll do it?
Look, I think the infrastructure is going to come regardless of whether the government's pushing or not. I think there are enough charging providers in here that are making the shift. We're already seeing Z and BP push out. We know Meridian's got a plan to put another 2,000 chargers in. All I can say is the data from our customers is 93% of BYD customers are charging at home. Mm-hmm. The best thing the customer can do is to get a home AC charger. So I personally would like to see it mandated for new builds, be it residential or in that retail space, they have charging put in. That makes a lot of sense. Out and about, holiday times, 5% of the time when you're going on a long trip, you might have to wait, but I think those charging networks are going to come anyway. So
we're hearing about bugger all of this year, and BP and Z have done pretty well. My concern with that plan and the money they're going to throw around with it is, what does it mean? Does it mean AC charging? Does it mean DC charging? I may have overheard some things, and I fear that potentially this could turn into a bit of a cash grab from opportunists. Government puts out money, and we've seen this in the past with the low emissions contestable fund, companies that really are repackaging stuff from elsewhere and not really doing good things, putting up and getting successful applications for funding, and not going anywhere. I think the government needs to be very careful around how they fund this, and I don't think the funding necessarily should just be cash to new operators to put out charges. I think, if anything, they should be working with companies that have already invested a lot of money in New Zealand charging. So realistically, you're looking at ZBP, ChargeNet, maybe WeEV, and OpenLoop, rather than going to, I heard of one Australian operator sniffing around specifically because of that money, and that concerns me. The other aspect of this, I think it's actually not so much money that these companies need, it's land. And I think the government actually needs to start looking into making land available around major transport routes. They've talked about it before, specifically for dedicated charging facilities or adjacent to existing dedicated charging facilities. NZTA owns a number of highway side rest areas that you think is privately owned, but they are actually sitting on NZTA land. And I think the government needs to be looking at whether they need to be making large tracts of that available to charging facilities. And that's something that definitely need to be thought about rather than just handing out cash. So going to be interesting to see how they go around what they roll out. Usual thing there, devil's in the detail. It sounds good, but it needs to be done right. Because I don't want to see, we've seen cases before of a company which got $500,000 out of the low emissions contestable fund to develop something that was already being imported from China and sold in New Zealand, and that can't happen. So it's got to be managed better than what they potentially have in the past.
And slightly off topic, but on the similar vein, something that no government departments want to talk to me about is vehicle to grid. We have the ability to have that in our cars. I can order that in our cars today. But and that's how people talks about, there's not enough power generation. Well, there is enough power generation, but there's not enough battery storage or grid, right? So if someone from the government's listening to this, we'd love to talk to you about vehicle to grid. It's coming, but there is no investment, there's no infrastructure, there's no legislation to help support that, and that could be a key part of our infrastructure going forward and help balance out those power demand.
Yeah, and I think they've just, I hate to be behind Australia, and I think that they've just, not sure if they've settled some standards or made an advancement in that area that is annoying to hear Australians beating us on.
No one's talking about it here, and the technology is actually here and available now. So we need to be thinking about this as a country now.
Yeah. Well, vehicle to load is just amazing. We have a lot of power cuts up here, and I've been running my house a lot off the BYDs and the Kias and so forth that pass through my driveway. So, I'm
going to have to shut off. obviously there are cars to sell. We've still, if you want to get a BYD, there's still a chance today. Today is pretty much the last day. Because I think you mentioned earlier on your podcast, the dealer has to register the car. They've got to PDI it. They've got to buy the car off us at head office. So there's still some orders to go through and process. But thank you both for your time. Have a safe New Year's. And
Are you guys going to stay open through Sunday to help for any last minute stuff?
I'm always working, Richard. You know me.
For people that don't know, Warren, and hopefully I get this right, I think spends every second weekend in a dealership around the country. Is that right?
That's right. I like to go down and help the guys on the showroom floor. I think they find it a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's
find me another brand head that does that.
Well, hey, BYD, Mr. Wang, the chairman of BYD, every second weekend he's out catching a train and going and doing some mystery shopping in the showrooms. But it's all very well sitting here in a corporate office and dictating to your dealers, but if you can get down in the trenches and show them that you're there with them, and I love to meet customers as well. So.
I take a wild guess that they're not serving lunch at Atico headquarters this week.
No, the chef is on holiday, but we get catered.
Oh, you have a chef. We have a pie cart, Warren.
It's the staff on site.
Go visit him. Go visit him at lunchtime one day, Graham. He'll hook you up.
You should. All right, guys.
Damn,
Right.
I get
joining us, Warren.
Jester's girl. Thanks, Warren.
Good on you.
Right. So,
The
Graham,
wonders of technology. Yes.
let's start heading towards the end of this very quickly.
Yes.
Highlight of the year, low light of the year.
Oh, man. In
Personally
the
or
automotive
work?
sector?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So for me personally, I'll say it was surviving a heart attack, which came out of nowhere.
Is that
it
the
was a
highlight or
pretty
the
big-
low light?
Well, no, I think the highlight. I made it through, and I'm here talking to you
Yes.
right now. So I'm going to count that as a pretty good highlight, to be honest. So I have a couple I can attest to. One is not a New Zealand one, but it's worth noting because a lot of you know that I do work or do some work in Australia for the imported vehicle industry over there. As one of the founding members of what's called AIMVIA, the Australian Imported Motor Vehicle Industry Association. And I think 2023 was a banner year for that association in getting, I suppose, headway into government to do some forward planning, actually, ironically, around EVs and the low emission space. But just seeing some better acceptance from government that the idea of nasty grey imports being this evil thing parked in the back lot, starting to see a thawing of government understanding what that could mean for their marketplace. And a number of Kiwi interests now heavily vested in the Australian marketplace that understand that as an important point as well. I was going to say, driving that Seal Performance, and I know I've wonked on it about a wee bit, but that was the first EV, and we've driven a fair few, and some of you have seen some of the road trips Richard and I have done, and I've always been the guy in the passenger seat chirping in with occasional comments. But that was the first EV, pure EV, that I've driven and spent time in that I genuinely thought, okay, we've arrived. We've made it to the point where I could consider this car as a purchase, irrespective of whether it was an EV or not. And I don't mean to be here plugging BYD, and I know Warren was on the show, and we've said nice things about it, but genuinely, that for me was a highlight moment about how good a car could be. And the third highlight for me probably was finally buying my Mustang. Thank you very much, Simon Rutherford and the team at Ford, for supporting me on that particular journey. But, again, I'm a 56-year-old man, and I thought, right, now's the time to have a toy.
For the people who aren't unaware of the situation, because it was covered through a few podcasts, Graham struggled a little bit getting the attention of a particular Auckland Ford dealer. And it sounds like they had some significant fails in either their staffing, customer relationship, or their CRM systems, one of all three or all of them. And Simon Rutherford, the managing director of Ford New Zealand, a lovely chap, very knowledgeable. He had been listening and he reached out and did what he could to help Graham. Graham ended up buying from elsewhere, but really showed the power of the podcast. And it was great to see that happen. So that's okay. Yeah, there you go. You've got your midlife crisis car now, so you're happy.
I do, more than happy. But I think, and as a low point of the industry, I don't know. I can't sort of think of any real lows apart from the market slide. And so we have definitely seen a reduction in buyer sentiment. So commercially speaking, 2023 had some highs, and it's currently going through what I'd say is a low patch. And I'm just hoping that the market can recover sufficiently in time that it doesn't lay waste to a lot of potentially good operators out there and good business models that are in the background that are struggling at the moment because of the way that marketplace is operating. I don't like the race to the bottom. And the used industry is particularly bad at it. And I think it's got worse in the last few years, where all it can really do is it just keeps cut the stuff that's important, that makes it tick and makes it a good value proposition for consumers. We call it the race to the bottom. And I can see that being a factor going forward at the moment. And it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the dealers. It's not good for the logistics providers. And it's certainly not good for the consumers. And I'd also point out that that's the time when we see the most fraud occurring. And I call it fraud. And for a good reason. We see so many stories out there of really blatant disregard for the law, and a bit controversial, but there's controversy around compliance and around financing and around sales ethics, sales models, sales styles. Yes, it's true. There's some shitty business being undertaken out there, and the tougher the times are, we see the shittier the business gets. And that is the low point of this industry, and it happens time and time again when things get tough. And I hope it's not a trend we see continue.
Yeah. On to my stuff, I guess the highlight of the year was surviving. It's been tough business out there this year, but we've just clocked over 2 years under my ownership, and I think, what are we now? 13, 14 years as a magazine. We've been in business a bit longer than that. And that's really great, I think. And we're having to continue to evolve and make some changes, but we've done really well. I think another highlight was I actually got to spend a bit more time working on some stories this year. And, the more I've had to drift into business, the more I remember that I do love being a journalist, and it's something I'm very good at. And getting into some gritty stories was great. No one threatened to top me this year, so that's good. No one's threatened to beat me
here's
up.
a win.
So that's well, maybe I'm not working hard enough on the journalism side if that's not happening. Lowlights, we had to make some trimming around the place, as you do, rationalize some business stuff, but we got there. Lowlight, hearing that my good mate was sitting in hospital with tubes all out of him. That wasn't wonderful either, but he's annoyingly still here. And
I know, right?
What else? I don't know. It's always hard to pick. Another low light was we had to push the AutoTalk Live to next year. But on the flip side, we're going to get to go next year. It really was a hard year for everyone. We don't blame those out there for these things. It's just election years suck for business. And as important as advertising is, when things are tight, totally understand people have to rationalize their marketing budgets, and it's great when they come out of it and they spend them all again. The thing that helped me this year was we just had some fantastic support out there, some great people out there in the market who as I wouldn't say I'm a young businessman, but I've only been actually in business myself for a few years now, who were just massive supports, both morally and advice and all that kind of stuff. Big hat tip out there, I guess, to Frank Willett from AutoHub, who was always there to give my team some blunt feedback on stuff he didn't like. Amos Banbury and Samuel Kavanagh from Better/One Partner. You guys are inspirational to me, and I think a lot of people in the industry are looking to you now. And it's been great to have you guys as what I would consider friends in the market, and there to throw ideas off. Graham, you've been always there, and I really appreciate that.
Likewise.
Yes. I guess we should have a bit of a nod and hat tip to those who have departed the trade this year. We've seen the two Davids retire, David Vincent and David Crawford, and they both have been big parts of my career, I guess. It was only a few years into my original stint as a trade journalist that I met David, and he's always been David Vincent, and he's always been incredibly easy to deal with. Similarly, David Crawford was a little bit difficult to warm up to at the start, but near the end, he was, well, not near the end. After a little while, he became incredibly easy to work with, and obviously, as you guys now see, we consider him a good friend, I'd say, Graham. And
absolutely, yes.
He really adds something to the podcast. He's off traveling at the moment, but the hilarious thing about Mr. Crawford was we kind of invited him along once, and he just kept inviting himself back, and
yes.
It works. He couldn't really do it while he was still there, but after he left, it's kind of his retirement thing, I guess, and he loves it, and we love having him around. And similarly with Amos, Amos was one of our regular, very diligent listeners, and I said, "Well, come on," and he came on, and again, he's just kind of he pops in and out once in a while. Great to have.
It's like the firm; you can never really leave.
No, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see who we accidentally adopt in this coming year. So
like a bunch of old aunts coming to Christmas dinner, isn't it? Really, every year.
Yes, exactly. Now, last comments for you, Graham.
Again, it's been a challenging 2023. So I thank everyone actually that's been supporting of both myself personally and I think the wider industry as well. We've actually got a good, decent bunch of buggers and buggerettes out there that are in the automotive sector, and keep on doing what you're doing, because as much as we bleat on here about all the bad stuff and we look forward to bad dealers section every now and then to pop up, it's a bloody good industry to be involved in. I live and breathe cars. It's all I've ever done, apart from a couple of gap years, and I'm damn proud to be associated with it. And I think for most of you, I think you feel the same way. And let's hold our heads up high and be as good as we can be to 2024. I really enjoy it, and thanks a lot for your support, and thanks a lot for doing the stuff that you do to make it a good place to be.
Yeah. Now, Graham, of course, is heading up to my place for New Year's, so we might record a little. Maybe we'll record a little hungover thing on Monday morning.
Monday morning. Yeah,
we'll sit on the balcony and try not to be sick for a few minutes, and point a camera at us, maybe. Everyone, look, have a great New Year's celebration. I think we're going to be back next week, hopefully. Yep, unless my balcony collapses. We'll see. I'm going to end on something totally silly. My 4-year-old daughter learned her first joke, and we're going to say that to end the podcast for the year. Graham, what do you call?
Yes, Richard.
What do you call a sleeping dinosaur?
I don't know, Richard. What do you call a sleeping dinosaur?
A Dinosaurus.
Oh boy, that's the